19th Amendment to the US Constitution. From Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia. The 19th Amendment, Amendment 19, to the US Constitution prohibits the states and thus the federal from denying the right to vote to citizens of the US on the thought of sex. Initially introduced to Congress in 1878, several attempts to pass a women's suffrage amendment failed until passing the House of Representatives on May 21, 1919, followed by the Senate on June 4, 1919. It had been then submitted to the states for ratification. On August 18, 1920, Tennessee was the last of the specified 36 ratifying states to secure adoption. The 19th Amendment's adoption was certified on August 26, 1920, the culmination of a decades-long movement for women's suffrage at both state and national levels. Prior to 1776, women had the right to settle on several of the colonies in what would become the US, but by 1807 every state constitution denied even limited suffrage. Organizations supporting women's rights became more active within the mid-19th century and, in 1848, the Seneca Falls Convention adopted the Declaration of Sentiments, which involved equality between the sexes and included a resolution urging women to secure the vote. Pro-suffrage organizations used a selection of tactics including legal arguments that relied on existing amendments. After those arguments were struck down by the U.S. Supreme Court, suffrage organizations, with activists like Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, involved a replacement constitutional amendment which may guarantee women the right to vote. By the late 19th century, new states and territories, particularly within the West, began to grant women the right to vote. In 1878, a suffrage proposal which may eventually become the 19th Amendment was introduced to Congress, but it had been rejected in 1887. Within the 1890s, suffrage organizations focused on a national amendment while still working at the state and native levels. Lucy Burns and Paul emerged as important leaders whose different strategies helped move the 19th Amendment forward. Entry of the US into war helped to shift public perception of women's suffrage. The National American Woman Suffrage Association, led by Carrie Chapman Catt, supported the war effort, making the case that girls should be rewarded with enfranchisement for his or her patriotic wartime service. The National Woman's Party staged marches, demonstrations, and hunger strikes while remarking the contradictions of fighting abroad for democracy while limiting its reception by denying women the right to vote. The work of both organizations swayed public opinion, prompting Wilson to announce his support of the suffrage amendment in 1918. It passed in 1919 and was adopted in 1920, withstanding two legal challenges, Lesser v. Garnett and Fairchild v. Hughes. The 19th Amendment enfranchised 26 million American women in time for the 1920 U.S. presidential election. But the powerful women's voting bloc that tons of politicians feared didn't fully materialize until decades later. Additionally, the 19th Amendment didn't fully enfranchise African American, Asian American, Spanish American, and Native American women, see limitations. Shortly after the amendment's adoption, Paul and thus the National Woman's Party began work on the Equal Rights Amendment, which they believed a necessary additional step to ensure equality.